And the reference in verse 18 to the people asking counsel of God refers to these Urim and Thummim carried and used by Phinehas, the high priest. The question they ask is, which of us shall go up first to the battle against the children of Benjamin? And the answer is Judah. Judah shall go first. Judah shall lead the expedition against Benjamin. This in turn means that the leader of Judah is the commander-in-chief, so to speak, of all of Israel's forces for these battles. Which of course means that if anything goes wrong, Judah stands to lose the most men. I trust some of you will remember last week we identified characteristics of 3 tribes in Israel in the days of the Judges. I want to mention that again, expand upon it, and now add a 4th tribal characteristic. Ephraim is the proud tribe. Ephraim wants to be in the thick of the battle against God's enemies, not because it wants to serve the Lord, but because it wants to be seen of men to get the glory. That's Judges 8 in the days of Gideon, and Judges 12 in the days of Jephthah, when its pride took them to such an extent that Ephraim fell under church discipline, and 42,000 Ephraimites were slain in and around the river Jordan. This same pride in Ephraim in the book of Judges later leads Ephraim to be the dominant tribe in the schism, the sinful division in the kingdom of Israel into the 10 tribes in the north and the 2 in the south, which schism was rapidly followed by rank apostasy with the 2 golden calves in Dan and Bethel. And the moral of this is pride led to schism, led to apostasy, and Ephraim, with other 9 tribes, becoming false church. And it started in Judges, if not earlier. Then we noticed that Dan is the tribe which ran away from its calling, the hard work that God commanded of it in the place in which he had put them. Dan's land was beside the Philistines, a mighty people. Too difficult, they judged, to drive out the Philistines and occupy our land. So it cut its losses and ran, heading to the very north of the promised land. Judges 18 deals with this, and therefore later it was the first to be attacked from the north, and so it was destroyed early in the history of the northern kingdom. And the moral of this is that running away from your calling in God's church leads to being wiped out. That's what happened to Dan. Then we have Benjamin. Benjamin is the tribe which defended its own when its own were under discipline. Benjamin is the tribe that reckons that blood is thicker than the covenant. I'll stand up for my family, my relatives, my friends, whatever it is, no matter what. And therefore Benjamin is almost totally destroyed. Judges 20 and 21. Now it's striking that these sinful characteristics of all 3 tribes led to their destruction in slightly different ways. Ephraim's pride led to schism and apostasy. Gone. Dan's dereliction of duty meant that it was ruined by enemy depredations. And Benjamin's stubbornness led to its near annihilation through church discipline. Well now, as well as these 3 tribes, Ephraim, Dan and Benjamin, the book of Judges portrays Judah as going first in battle, leading the fight in Israel. In Judges 1, after the death of Joshua, a similar question was asked to that in verse 18. Who will go up first? Judah. Judah and Simeon went up to take more of the land that hadn't been thoroughly possessed under Joshua. In Judges 3, we read that the first judge, Othniel, was of the tribe of Judah. Here in Judges 20, according to God's express statement, Judah is to be first in executing church discipline in Benjamin. And yet also this needs to be said, that Judah, the tribe which should have been and was often called to be first in fighting God's battles, in the days of Samson, Judah didn't want to fight at all. And Judah even handed over Samson to the Philistines, to let the Philistines do what they would to him. There were problems with Judah too. But in general, this honourable role for Judah was not because of some particular excellency of that tribe, but because it was the royal tribe, as Genesis 49 makes clear, through whom Jesus Christ is going to come, the divine warrior who will defeat sin and death and Satan on the cross. And later in Israel's history, we've traced Ephraim and Dan and Benjamin. Later in Israel's history, Judah will bring forth David and Solomon, the royal house, the Davidic kings. So what happens next after God says Judah shall go up first? Well, Israel returned from the tabernacle at Bethel after consulting the high priest with his Urim and Thummim. Next morning, with Judah going first, they attacked Benjamin at Gibeah, which of course was a very appropriate site for the battle, because Gibeah was where the outrage had been perpetrated that set this whole thing in motion. And it shows how rotten Benjamin is, that they are actually choosing to fight where the rape took place. And the result of the battle, the first battle, is given in verse 21. The children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites that day 22,000 men. 22,000 dead. Not of Benjamin, but of Israel. 22,000. The death of one woman, and now 22,000 lie dead. The phrase used here, destroyed down to the ground, is a graphic way of saying that these brave soldiers standing upright have been smitten and struck down so that their bodies fall to the ground and lay there as corpses. And Israel is shocked. Israel is stunned. This is the last thing they expected. How could we lose? How could we lose so heavily? We're much stronger. Our army outnumbers them 15 to 1. We're 11 tribes, they're 1 tribe. Legally, this is probably the thing that most grated them. Legally, we are in the right. God's word requires of us that we destroy Benjamin for its sin. And then where had we just been? We went up to Bethel at the tabernacle. Hadn't the high priest himself, Phinehas, used the Urim and Thummim? God told us Judah is to go up first. And yet 22,000 of our men lie dead. And that's a lot of graves to dig. That's a lot of widows and orphans. That's a lot of pain for a lot of people. The whole church is feeling it now. Just a few days before, there'd been an outrage. One person's dead. Now the whole body feels it.